politics this at is basically to accomplish whatever the resolution is. It would require a certain amount of political capital that whoever your subject is does not have, or using that would prevent him or her from doing something else that's even more important.
Cool, right? Okay, who's run a politics diss before? Just so I can... Oh yeah, I know movies. Okay, great. I love the new things. Okay. So, when the app enacts the resolution, what do we call that? Yeah. Because LD is a little different, people don't have to specify down to a plan, they can just implement the resolution, right? This is really, really good. So basically anyone that looks up the consequences of the resolution by enacting it can link to a policy. So if you get a link. Make sense? How do we enact the plan? Or we pass the plan?
You affirm the resolution?
Well, yeah. Yeah, definitely. You said it earlier.
Pass through Congress, or fiat.
Okay, right. You fiat. It doesn't have to pass through Congress. So what's fiat besides an adorable little car?
It assumes that, like, the plan already passed, and it looks at, like, what happened.
Right. We agree as debaters. At me, right? We agree as debaters that it is more competitive and better clash for both sides if we can talk about the advantages and disadvantages, offensively, of doing something, rather than relying solely on defensive answers as, that can never happen. That would never happen, right? Instead, we engage in this make-believe world of what would happen if. So we grant access that it's done, so we can compare their advantages to any disadvantages we may bring up after enacting the resolution. Make sense? Cool. Okay? So, what's interesting about fiat, and I would caution this, fiat is not a magic wand, right? Debate is magical, but fiat relies on something we call normal means. What does that imply?
You can't like hyperextend the fiat. It has to be something that's able to provide a division of ground for the negatives responsive. You can't be like, oh, I passed this and all these different things happen.
Right. In simplified terms, it means you cannot include advantages of the plan in the plan text, right? You can't say, if the resolution is people should get pets, you cannot say, Becca will get a pet and be happy as the plan text, right? You have to say Becca will get a pet, and then the advantage would be she is happy. Solvency is pets make people happy. Make sense? Okay? Alright. Normal means is a great thing. It also means that we learn a lot about the American political system, especially when the resolution is in America. Yay. Edge. Okay? What do you guys know about the U.S. political system? Tell me about it. State government, yeah.
It involves 3 different branches, and they all check and balance each other.
Ooh, yeah. Checks and balances. Okay. 3 different branches, what are they?
Legislative, executive, and judicial.
Uh-huh. What is, do they all get to do the same thing?
No.
Okay. And there are different processes for each of these. And by the way, this is the USFG. U.S. federal government. What kind of government do we have in America?
Representative democracy.
Almost there. Pretty close. What else? Most people call it a federal republic, right? You're absolutely right that it is a representative democracy because we elect leaders so far, but we also say add federal in there because federal, there's a Supreme Court case that this has been decided a really long time, since like 1800s, right? That the boats cannot rise higher than the water. Therefore, the states have to basically follow the lead of the federal government. This is why it's not necessary in a plan text to say the US federal government and the states, unless it's something that the US federal government does not have jurisdiction over. Make sense? Cool, alright. So this means, I just said a word, jurisdiction, what does that mean? Yeah,
It means the thing that you have power over, or you're allowed to, like, discuss or something.
exactly. So can Obama declare something unconstitutional? Well, he can say something's unconstitutional, right? But does it hold any weight?
Not
No.
politically.
What?
Not politically.
Exactly. It might affect things. Okay. Can Obama declare war?
Not officially.
Only Congress can declare war. Unless there's like war powers resolution, you can do it in like 60 days and then let Congress do it, right? That would be the normal means, right? So if the plan is, let's say we're talking about the democracy promotion topic. Let's say the plan is Obama declares war in Syria. Okay? ACT gets advantages of Obama getting to go to war. But because of Vietnam, right, at Nixon, we have this thing where the Congress has to approve the war within 60 days of troops being on the ground. So the normal means for that in the plan is sure, you can say that Obama will declare war, but I can still link to get to the politics to that, right? Because Congress has to declare war, right? If he doesn't, then you don't have solvency, the end, right? Good job for 60 days. So the politics dissent is based on the effects, because we have a representative democracy that engages in a federal republic, these things right here, the three branches, they like power. Some of them. Some of them are austere institutions that, would never do anything wrong, right? What's interesting, though, is the politics dissent, because there's checks and balances, and there's a lot of people and a lot of different interests. We have what we call a pluralistic democracy in many cases. A lot of people feel different ways about different things. Okay? So, let's say my plan is I'm going to get some headphones. Okay? That's my plan. I got some headphones. How do you feel about this?
They're very sad.
Why?
You took my headphones.
But okay, so I took it. So what are you gonna do about it?
I'm gonna take away some of your political capital.
No, but what are you actually gonna do about it? Wow.
I'm gonna take it back
How?
by getting up and like
How?
grabbing it.
What are you talking about?
And like getting up and then walking over and like
No, you can't have it back. I want it.
so I'll keep going.
Right?
So
This is interrupting the lecture. What's the impact to that?
You don't learn education.
Exactly. Right? So I did something. I said, Becca wants headphones. I took the headphones, and then I was like, wonderful. You can take them back.
I thought you really wanted them.
You were really gonna give them to me?
No.
Okay. So I thought that, I was like, okay, my plan is Becca will get headphones. Normal means stealing, right? Okay. Then I take Ahmed's headphones, and he interrupts the lecture. So if this, then that. There's a chain reaction. Make sense? The chain reaction is what is so important in the politics of that, right? And we're going to talk about a couple things, because if you can't prove that a domino chain, and that only this singular domino affects this domino, then your politics dissent is kind of screwed, right? So let's go through that. So what are the parts of a dissent? What's the first part? Which means?
Something the status quo is happening.
Right, it's a description of the status quo. Because the status is not quo. Okay? basic shall. So link is what you have done, right? What happens, okay? Let's get a little more intense. So if I just say that if we ban guns, then Texas will secede, and then nuke war, world go boom. Does that sound logical?
What Texas does have the only nuclear sunset thing.
Right, exactly, right? So, sure, maybe the impact, if I can win, that Texas will secede. Do I get access to that? I mean, I'm saying you ban guns, it makes Texas angry.
I think there has to be more of a evidential link that Republicans in the past have historically been mad when you have tried to ban gun legislation.
Exactly, there has to be, like, especially as a debater, when you're debating politics dissents, if they have a huge impact, you want to make sure it definitely links, because the higher up the link chain you go, you won't have to mess with the impact, right? You can prove that it doesn't trigger anything. So we have something called a brink. Okay? And then we have something called series of internal links. Okay? And then we have a terminal impact as well. Okay? So oftentimes these are the same. So the uniqueness, the description of the SWO, right, has to connect to the link in some way. There has to be a tipping point. So for example, if Dan is on the cliff, right, I push Dan off of the cliff, and then Dan bleeds out, right? Okay, theoretically, I think he just gets smashed. So instead I'm going to say, no, Dan is teetering near the edge of the cliff. I push him slightly with my finger. He tumbles down onto a pile of very sharp rocks at the bottom of the cliff. And because skin is punctured very easily from that gravity, even if the slightest flattest stone, he bleeds out. No more Dan. Bye-bye, Dan. Okay? Little graphic for early in the morning? Sorry, guys. No. So, the internal link would be the explanation of the sharp rocks, right? It's what connects the link to the impact. So oftentimes you can't just go Texas secedes and then extinction. There has to be something in between that explains it. Make sense? Now what's great about the politics dissent is that you also need to have a couple other things. Okay? Okay? Not only do you need to have uniqueness, right? When you're researching for politics dissent, and definitely in the second negative speech, right? You want to describe issue-specific uniqueness. Okay? Why only the affirmative can start the link chain. Okay? Only doing the app. So right now, we would say there are a lot of other reasons Texas wants to secede. Make sense? There's a lot of other reasons Texas wants to secede, and I could mitigate any other part of the link that Texas will secede because of gun control. Then we should at least debate the advantages of gun control against a very slim Texas will secede, which might happen anyway. It might be what we call inevitable. Make sense? Okay. Then we have also link uniqueness, which is very similar to issue-specific uniqueness about whether or not Texas will secede. And this is only this. So then we also have link uniqueness. For LD purposes, since we have shorter speeches than policy, oftentimes I would recommend combining these two ideas because most LDers will not talk about issue-specific uniqueness. So if you want to prioritize your research, you should talk about link uniqueness. Okay? Because that will give you more offense to say, yes, only the plan can do this. Okay? All right. The other interesting thing, so there are a lot of different types of things that can link, right, to a politics system. things that can happen. Let me do some of these players. If I asked you who is the majority and minority whip of Congress, what would you say?
Majority Republicans.
Who is the majority whip? What is a whip in Congress?
Someone who like spurs the votes together.
Yeah, a whip literally whips together people to try to help the party and the Speaker of the House or the person in charge or the minority leader in charge of each party to figure out their vote count, right? If you're dealing with a politics dissad within Congress, right, i.e. Congress will pass the plan, Congress does not like the plan, but they have to pass it, and you talk about the effects of them not liking it, you want to know about the vote count for your issue-specific uniqueness. Does that make sense? Meaning, if right now education reform is going to pass, and Republicans don't really want to pass it, but they will, like they're willing to work with them, we have just enough votes, and then we find out that we pass gun control. Gun control makes Republicans really, those specific Republicans in the vote count really, really angry. And then, like, the minority whip, right, confirms that without those key Republicans, right, we can't pass education reform. And we know that those Republicans hate gun control. Then we have a link chain. That is a very good link chain, right? Why? Why was having sources from or quotes from the majority or minority whip or person who takes the vote count be better than having some random CNN article that's 5 years old that says, yo, like, Republicans don't like gun control? Somebody besides Ahmed. Yeah.
It's like a first-hand,
I'm sorry?
it's like a first-hand account.
Yeah, it's definitely firsthand, but it's also, because politics is, the politics side bases on the idea that politics is constantly changing, right? That it's very fluid, that one thing influences another. There's a lot of things going on, people trade ipso facto deals, right? Therefore, the more recent it is, and more specific and more well-informed your source is, the better it's going to be. When you're answering a politics dissad, this is also something that you can attack. You can be like, where did CNN find this stuff? This is from 2004. That's a long time ago. I was 3. Not I wasn't 3, but you guys were probably 3. Make sense? What?
Oh, so.
Congratulations. Doesn't make it better. Right? Okay? We talked a little bit about political capital, and I don't think we've gone through that at all. Does anyone, like, really, do you know what political capital is?
Yeah, basically it's like the ability to get away with like passing laws. So if like Obama goes through and passes something, then he probably doesn't have as much political capital to get through something else.
Right. Political capital, think about capital like something you can spend. Okay? The idea of political capital, some people think is finite. Right? As a president, I only have so much things I can do, right, before people start getting annoyed with me. Other people think that political capital, you can make it, right, by helping other people. Make sense? This is a scenario we call winners. This sets the picture, I guess I should say. Where winners win and winners lose. I can't spell. Okay? So if I say winners win, what does that mean?
They win because like whatever it is they're trying to do gets done. Whatever.
Yeah, so that would say something, this would rely on the idea that if we pass, it's basically on, we're passing a difficult bill, right? We have to use political capital to get it. Some people will say that the ability to quote unquote muscle through, right, and get a tough bill passed, which you can fiat, right, results in more political capital. Winners lose is basically the idea if you have to muscle through one bill, you will lose in another bill because you lost political capital. Does everybody know how a bill becomes a law? Raise your hand if you don't know how a bill becomes a law. Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Because I would pull out the Schoolhouse Rock video, so we needed to. Okay? Alright? So then we also have, in political capital, what are some other things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about who are the two major parties.
Republicans and Democrats.
Sure. So we have, what is it called when they work together in unison?
Bipartisanship.
Okay? Okay? And what if I said that, is it possible that all of the Democrats align in one way and all of the Republicans align in another way?
Yes.
It is possible. Is it possible for that not to happen? Right? Because everything is issue specific. Now, because of the way Congress works, right, if you vote outside of your party lines a bunch, you probably won't get elected, right? There's also, just so you know, when you're reading things called pork, right, what is a pork? If I say you're stuffing the bill with pork,
That's like, I don't know, like, you pass this, but you have to pass my vote to solve it.
that's close. So interestingly enough, so Congress, it gets elected based on how well they serve their constituents. So oftentimes into a popular bill, you will add in what we call pork, right? And you'll put in those things and be like, oh, well, it's gonna pass anyway, so it's gonna help my representatives. Sarah Palin came under attack for this when she was talking about whether or not she agreed on the bill to nowhere, right? There's a bridge to nowhere that she was building. And really, it was just a way to bring money into Alaska. Right? So people in Alaska love it, people everywhere else hated it. So what is one person's pork is another person's bread and butter and a reason they would vote for them. So that's another thing to take into account when you're reading about these things. Okay? Oftentimes, we can say one bill is an olive branch. Right? So a way in which a partisan Congress offers a way to kind of resolve another issue. So for example, if we say gun control is an olive branch between the parties, because since it is the third rail, nobody wants it. Make sense? Another thing you want to think about is, I just want to make sure, does everyone know how Congress works? We know how a bill becomes a law. What's a filibuster? Anybody else know? Anybody else want to take a guess? William?
Filibuster is when you get up in Congress to speak, and you don't want a law to get passed, so you just keep speaking, so.
What part of Congress?
I thought it was the Senate. I might be-
Yep, only the Senate can do a filibuster. This is based on an archaic idea that senators are really great orators. I think Ted Cruz reading Green Eggs and Ham will prove that wrong. But, nevertheless, it did, right? So what's the point of a filibuster?
Not allow them to vote.
Right, because there are certain things on the agenda and the docket, and if a filibuster happens, the whole point of a filibuster is to delay or basically write out the session, so a vote can never happen. So if we say, if you pass gun control, Senator Ted Cruz will wax poetic about gun laws for 5 days, right? Or then some of his fellow senators, because unlike the Texas Senate, the United States Senate doesn't have a germaneness rule, okay? Which germane is just relevant to the topic, so he could talk for as much as he wanted about whatever he wanted. Whereas Wendy Davis could not, had to stay strictly on point, which we can talk about that later.
Right.
So if I say that that happens, then that means that Ted Cruz is so angry for 5 days, just talking about things, that then immigration reform doesn't get passed. And then I can get access to those offense, right? This is what happens when immigration reform doesn't get passed. Because you pissed off Senator Ted Cruz and he decided to read all of Dr. Seuss's entire ode, right? Okay? Okay, does everyone feel kind of okay with some different scenarios for a politics dissent? Okay, so some tips for researching politics dissents. Before you research a politics dissent, you must first know who's who in Congress. Okay? You can find this out as you're researching for it, context for what you're researching if you kind of know what's going on. So you need to know who is the majority leader, who is the minority leader, the whips for both of those, what the current vote count is on whatever uniqueness issue you're talking about. You also want to think about if there's going to be, if it's a veto, if it can override a veto, or if it's veto proof. What do I mean by a veto? Brianne?
The president can just like stop it.
Right, so the idea is if there's a controversial bill, right, or another bill that's going to happen, right, because you can also say that, well, immigration reform, the way the Republicans want, won't pass anyway because Obama will veto it. Then you can say, to add to the link uniqueness, right, you can say, no, right now this is veto proof. Obama just wants something to happen with it. So that will help contribute to only the plan causes bad things to happen. Make sense? Or you could say that, nah, like, this won't happen at all. Okay? You also want, that helps with the vote count, because how many votes do you need to override a veto in Congress? Yeah.
2/3.
Yeah, you're like the little government. Nice, like it. Okay? Alright, and then you also need to know the congressional committee that sponsors the bill, and the committee chair's in charge of it. This is helpful because if you're talking about a very specific bill, and you know who the chair is, or you know who's the decisive vote in that, and then you piss them off, congratulations, you have a really excellent link scenario. It helps you focus what's going on. This also helps if you know that it's perception or not perceived. So if the link of political capital is perceived, right, so for example, when we talk about gun control as the third rail of politics, that is a perceptual link, that if anyone goes even near gun control, people will get really upset. Make sense? Versus if you actually have to act on it. Like, we know, like for a while, they thought universal health care would never happen. So even talk about it didn't matter. So it had to actually happen instead of just being perceived to be happening. Okay? You also, when you're trying to researching for getting ready for a topic, like especially when you're waiting between topics, is a good time to cut like Obama good bad scenarios and kind of get caught up on what's happening with the current political realm. Another thing that I highly recommend you do is that once you write your politics dissat, you set yourself up for Google News updates. Or if you know a politics dissat is really common in this, like because of a certain topic, you also set yourself up for Google News updates. So that way if something happens, you are on the wall. It is really, really helpful. So you definitely want to do that. Another interesting thing, so the last thing I'm going to close on is kind of a really intriguing idea. We can talk about it more in office hours. Or another thing. So if I say, so let's say you run a plan, right? Your plan says that it takes a court case in the Supreme Court and basically says that gun control is so it reverses the decision in the Second Amendment, right? That gun control is constitutional, needs to happen. Okay? What would you do against it? Could you run a politics dissat against that? This is a really good question, guys.
Yes.
Why could you run a politics dissat against the court? Or is the Supreme Court elected?
No.
No, you cannot. But, if the negative then runs a counter plan, that's like, oh, Obama will issue an executive order to ban assault rifles, and then there's another reason why the courts are bad, like court clog, the act can then read what we call reverse politics against the counter plan. Because politics links to the counter plan, but not to the act, and that becomes an advantage for the act. So politics is not something you can only do on the negative. You just have to make sure that it links to something. Does anyone have any questions, or is everyone just really tired? No answer either way. Does everyone understand where we're coming from now? At this point? Okay. Anybody really want to run a politics dissent now? Yeah, they're super cool. As you know, like with most dissents, the impact, right, you can make it small. I would also suggest, in terms of strategy, adding in a bunch of terminal impacts, right, or a bunch of successive impacts to result in a large terminal impact. Because especially in LD, people will then latch on only to the impact, the last part of the impact chain. And then, okay, even if you don't end in extinction, you still in Texas secession, that's probably pretty bad for other reasons, like economic meltdown. That's another strategic thing to do. Okay. Make sense? Okay, so answering the politics dissent. Okay, everybody can move on. Literally move on. Get it? I'm trying to be really entertaining for you guys. It's not working. I'm really sorry. Okay. All right. If we're answering, what are some normal ways we answer the dissent?
No link.
Okay. No link. Definitely. No link. How can we do that in a politics scenario? We can also link turn it, right? No link or link turn. Okay? If we no link it, we can say, we can contest the issue uniqueness, right? We can contest the link, we can contest the link uniqueness. Like, oh no, I'm not the only one that's going to cause this. Make sense? By doing that, you talk about the floor count, you talk about what the current state is. Basically, you say your description of the status quo is not accurate. Okay? In fact, it's like this. That would be the non-unique answer, right? You question the uniqueness. Now, if we're going to say link turn, we say, nah, you might be right about the current state of affairs, but the next step you're wrong about. So for example, if their scenario hinges on winners lose, right, you're going to have evidence that you've cut before a tournament, right, that say winners win. That link turns the politics dissent. Why?
Just passing the plan at that point would give him more political capital rather than losing.
Exactly. In fact, instead of losing something that triggers a link chain, we actually get more of it. The great thing about, okay, there's a lot of ways, because politics is in flux and a lot of people disagree on which way people feel about things, therefore that means it's really easy to link turn. So before every tournament, I definitely recommend that you get Obama good, bad on both sides, pull cap high, low on both sides. Also get basic net votes, because if they read one way, you can just read the other way, right? And then you link turn it. It requires some work before the tournament, but I recommend doing this about 2 days before. Otherwise, if you do it too early, you might have to redo it.
Does your evidence literally have to say political capital to imply that it's political capital?
Commonly for political capital, yes. Most times it does, especially with news sources like Google News or like other news sources that write about it. This is actually a good time to talk about author quals. We've mentioned it a little bit. You want to also make sure, as always, your evidence needs to have authors. But you need to be careful, because politics is also about convincing people, right? And persuading them in one way. You want to make sure that your authors are coming from the most neutral or most unbiased standpoint that they can, that we know it's close to the truth. So for example, a lot of third-party websites, right, will talk about how, like for example, NORML, right, which seeks to legalize and decriminalize marijuana, will talk about how every senator loves it. That's probably not a good source, right, because they're trying to get people to vote for them. And third parties have to often unite around a certain issue. And so they try to give people hope about it. Make sense? Cool. So you want to make sure it doesn't come from a third party or another biased source. So for example, I wouldn't trust Donald Trump on what Democratic strategy is. I Nancy Pelosi about what she says is next on the docket, or the next item or bill to vote on. Because she's closer to it. Make sense? If you don't want to do everything on the votes, or you don't know what the politics scenario is going to be, for example, right before Green Hill, right? Bigger tournament early in the year, not really sure what the politics scenario is going to be. It would be good to have evidence both ways about different caucus issues. So what is a caucus? Yeah, that's okay, great. Everybody's gonna learn what a caucus is. This is really great. You'll all be amazing American citizens, okay? So a caucus is basically how parties orient themselves around specific issues. So not even just political issues, but issues in general. For example, in Congress, there's a women's caucus, and it's bipartisan. All the women in Congress get together and hang out, and they talk. There's also a caucus about log cabin Republicans. So those are Republicans who believe in marriage equality, but are very fiscally conservative. Think of it as like a little party where they all get together and they talk about what's going on. So if you know as one person is in one caucus and they're willing to compromise on an issue with someone else, it makes it a lot easier. Okay?
How do you spell caucus?
Yeah, no problem. It's C-A-U-C-U-S. And honestly, a lot of the politics scenarios, you want to, just like with all PAs, you want to contest higher up, the highest point of the link chain that gives you offense, right? So, for example, if you can link turn something, right, and your link turn evidence is really, really, really good, you don't want to then non-unique it. Why? I can't say this is not the current state of affairs and then say, actually, I cause X. Kim, why?
It just doesn't work. I don't know, that is the reason why.
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
want to take it?
Do a double turn or something?
Well, double turn is when I link turn and impact turn. You can technically do a non-unique and a link turn, but if your link turn is super good and somebody wants to kick the politics scenario, like, they can just concede your defense, right, on the uniqueness issue. And then you put offense on a politics scenario that you no longer get. So you can both non-unique it and say, then link turn and say, actually, my scenario makes it better. Then they can't concede the non-unique. But, I mean, they can, but that's pretty dumb of them, right? Okay?
When you say my scenario, are you like counterpoint or like?
It's just whatever side. Because remember we talked about how you could read reverse politics? So it's just, if they say X, I say Y. So maybe for purposes of understanding, so let's go with the gun control Texas secession thing. Okay, let's write it out, and then we can answer it. So what is the uniqueness? The first part. Somebody? For the Texas scenario that we just made up? Yeah, Texas in union now. Because remember, the link has to prove why you change the uniqueness. What happens because of the plan. Changes the direction of the document. Okay, that's the uniqueness. What's the bring?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are we picking Texas because they're the most conservative state?
Yeah, it's easy.
Okay.
I didn't have a lot of cards.
They're the most conservative one, I mean.
And Texas really likes guns, right?
Yeah, they're always.
And Greg Abbott has already proved himself crazier, right? So these are all brick issues, right? So Texas has threatened to leave. We can cite fracking. Right, they're angry about the EPA. Like, Den 10 literally banned fracking and then Texas, Governor Abbott, banned bans on fracking. Says, no, you can't ban fracking, and we have to have a singular thing. And so they're saying that if the EPA comes in and tries to uphold city bans, Texas is gonna be really pissed, right? But that's just all show, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Then we say, B, let's go through the link chain, okay? Anybody else? Yeah.
The Democrats passed gun control, and then the Texas pushes it over the bridge and succeeds.
Sure, so gun control, so first we have to have,
I mean, a ban on guns, yeah.
yeah, we would say gun control, makes Texas angry. And then because you get solvency in the plan, right, you have to come and take away the guns, right? So then the internal link would be, Texas, no guns, leads to Obama shot. That's kind of a stretch, right? Or that's when you can say, no, like Obama's not gonna come to Texas, right? Like that, he's not gonna be the one personally taking away your guns. Okay, so that's not likely. We have to have, that means we have to have another step, right? Texas has no guns, or Texas guns being taken away from leads to a struggle. That struggle, so you mentioned Texas has a nuke. I don't know if that's actually true or not.
They're the only place in the U.S. with a nuclear missile assembly plant.
Okay, so
Because
Texas,
Yeah, it's the only.
I thought Colorado had that.
No, it has a lot of nuclear missiles, but Texas is the only place where they're capable of making more of them.
okay. Can I just say, alright, so then I get, okay, so if I wanna say, if I say I wanna end in extinction, so we know what we want the terminal impact to be, right? That's the terminal impact, okay? How do I get from Texas nuclear assembly plant to extinction? Brianne?
I'm confused as to why we can't just do struggle leads to another civil war. That seems to be an easier link.
Right. It's not just an easier link, right? It's a reason why they would use their assembly plant. So if Texas secedes and they're on their own, they can still be self-sustained. So we can do both, right? The struggle leads to a civil war. When a civil war happens, we are on our own, we are self-sustainable, we have a nuke. Okay? Now that we have a nuke, if Union tries to take us back, right? Then that leads to triggering the plant, like we are better than, the Russians, when we talk about now, we say something, we mean it, it's bigger in Texas, and the bigger the boom. Right? Extinction. That's kind of scary. But, so that's the politics scenario. Let's say I'm answering this. Okay? What are some ways I can answer it?
Texas would never go into mutually assured destruction.
Okay, Texas, never mutually assured destruction. Okay, but if Texas still leaves, that's still bad that's bad for our economy, right?
Yeah.
You still have other things. That's one way to do it, but you need more on it. What else?
Texas will never leave the Union.
Yeah, Texas won't leave the Union. We can't even take care of ourselves after a flood. Right? Like, alright? Yeah,
Like Texas physically can't leave the Union, like they don't have enough military power to leave.
but I thought you said they had a nuke.
Yeah, but like, what if like
They're taking out guns.
what if like the military pushes it and like
Great.
Texas National Guard is no match for the U.S.
Right, you're
military.
questioning the internal link, right?
Right.
What if I say that the fact the internal, what if I say no? You might say we not be able to get away, but because they're going to be used excessive force, that makes it even more likely that we'll secede. That's that's a way to answer back and keep your politics, yeah.
Texans will just buy shotguns and rifles, is the only thing that would be banned would be handguns.
Oh, so there's no leak, okay, I got it. Alright, so let's do this a little more specifically with Congress, okay, now that I think everyone's got the kind of, because especially in LD, larger party issues, like ideas like Texas states, those are kind of easier for one, to package in a short time frame, right, and to understand. So let's do one that's a little more specific.
Whenever you're responding, do you just use like logical arguments, or do you need to have like cards ready for different types of attacks?
I would say cards, yeah, are good. Cards in general are good.
If you don't have anything.
Well, yeah, you should definitely not pretend it's not there,
Okay.
right? That doesn't work. Sometimes, maybe. The judge also didn't flow it. That's it. Okay. Alright, so tell me something that's going on in Congress right now. Just Google News, and I know you're all on your computer. What is Congress voting on currently? What's something Congress is voting on?
Oh, the Trans-Pacific Partnership thing, DPP.
What is it happening now? Trans?
What is it called? Trans-Pacific Partnership, yeah. What's it got?
Okay, that's what's happening now. Is it gonna pass now, or is it not gonna pass? Just literally open Google and do Trans-Pacific Partnership status, or Trans-Pacific Partnership pass, and then search Google News.
I think it passed.
What?
I think it passed, I'll check. Agree.
One of them already passed. There are several different bills.
TAA passed.
But not, which says that if he gets fast track authority, he can use it. So part one of it passed. We're at part two. Did it pass?
It,
Will it pass? Is what a better predictor?
NAFTA passed it, but it failed.
What?
NAFTA passed it, but it failed.
What do you mean?
Like, they passed the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but it failed. I don't know if this is a good article.
Okay, so for the intents and purposes of this demonstration, right? Okay, let's say it's gonna pass now, right? And we can work on finding articles together later, okay? Right? So Trans-Pacific Partnership will pass now. Okay? We need some reason why it'll only pass with key Republican support. Okay, what do we call that? This is issue-specific uniqueness. Okay? Okay? B, the link. Okay, as a broad statement for the link, we're going to say gun control leads to no Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay? Yeah.
Would the NRA be involved in this at all, in your politics?
Lobbying groups are also really important to think about. So let's think about this, right? TPA. Okay? So then this is a broad link, right? We need to break it down a little bit. Okay, so one, key repubs for TPA funded by NRA. Alright, if they're only funded by the NRA, okay? Everyone, just as a side note, for the purpose of this, what happens with money in politics? Money controls politics, right? If you lose funding for your campaign, you don't want to piss off the people who fund your campaign. As a general, this is where we're standing on, okay? So funded by the NRA, which is the National Rifle have threatened to withdraw support without, okay, and then we can do like some third rail argument, right? Okay? 3, plan, this is the best link, right? Plan leads to Republicans changing minds. So they change the direction of the support, right? That means no TPA. Okay? Then C, no TPA leads to mushroom cloud, right? Okay? Well, it goes boom. Again, we need to have a separate link chain that talks about why not passing the Trans-Pacific Partnership would result in extinction. Okay? Or economic decline which leads to extinction. Blah, blah, blah. Right? So let's answer this. Everyone okay with this scenario? Alright, what are some ways we can answer this argument?
You can say the Trans-Pacific Partnership won't pass.
Sure, so you can say non-unique. Okay? Then let's say that, nope, okay? What else can you say? We can say uniqueness overwhelms the link. What does that mean? Hannah?
Because it can happen on both sides, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a really good guess. In this scenario, it means that they like it so much, right? It is so strong that it's definitely going to pass, that nothing we do will affect it. So that's why having link uniqueness is so important, right? Because then if you have link uniqueness in your back file, then you can be like, yo, no, you can't say uniqueness overwhelms the link. This is, gun control is the one issue that will change this. Okay? Alright? You can also, when you're researching, what you call that is a thumper, which is basically link uniqueness takes out. That's just kind of as a side note, that's what a thumper is. So sometimes you'll hear your politics teammates being like, oh, you have a thumper? Kind of thing, right? It's not the funny joke, okay. I'm killing it today. Okay? Alright. What else can we do?
Link turn.
What? Yeah, how would we link turn? Give me an example of a link turn here.
Gun control leads to more ability to pass the TP.
Right, you could say link turn, right? Dems love gun control. Changes their mind on TPA, right? Means TPA is going to pass even more because those Republicans don't really care about it anyway because the NRA is really fickle. Make sense? And then you could even say that winners win, right? Well, that's a little bit right. You could even say that leads to Dem support on another issue, and that outweighs your ridiculous scenario over here, right? But we get Dems really excited about the TPA, that's really, really intense, right? This is the one issue they don't agree with the president on.
Wait, the president doesn't support gun control?
I'm sorry?
Obama doesn't support gun control?
No, I'm talking about the TPA.
Oh.
So, the Democrats do not like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Make sense? Everybody good? Okay. What else can we say? Is there another way to link turn it?
Link turn on.
and say actually passing the TPA leads to economic downturn? Okay? Now you want to be careful, you can't say all of these together, just remember, keep that in mind. These are just lots of different things we can say. You'll have to go through the rest of the link chain and piece it together and figure out if you can. And then you can also obviously impact turn and say economic downturn is good and go all office on it, but that's not a good idea. Okay?
What websites can you look at? That's also good.
I would definitely, like I said, sign up for Google News. You also want to look at like the Huffington Post or like the New York Times. You can look, usually Washington area, Washington DC newspapers. Usually, sometimes, historically, we get things faster, but now with the advent of the internet, it'd be good. Don't cite tweets. That's kind of silly, especially because, I mean, if you can think of a reason why, like, if, like, Sarah Palin tweeting, gun control is evil, I will kill everyone, right, with my helicopter that killed wolves. I mean, okay, but that's a pretty tenuous link, because you could just say Twitter is not a credible source. Or you could say Twitter is a very credible source, because it's actually that person speaking on what they want.
But, well, a lot of politicians don't run their own Twitter accounts too.
Exactly, on the nose. You got it. Right? So, don't look at blog posts. Look at the journalist. You can also research the journalist and see what other beats they cover. So, for example, if the journalist only ever covers obituaries, and all of a sudden they're writing about a bill, they either got a promotion, which is unlikely, right? Big promotion at once. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Does everyone feel a little bit more confident about answering and researching politics this time? If you don't, you can come see me at office hours.